1, 2, and 2. Desmond Moses, Lauren Moses, Moses squared.
The student, the athlete, the culture. Welcome back, everyone, to Moses Squared Podcast. I am, of course, Lauren Brielle with my brother and co-host Desmond Moses. We took a well-needed but short break from uploading episodes. We just wanted all of our listeners to get caught up on the past 5 episodes as the weeks just seem to be going by quicker and quicker. So let's get right into episode 6. Respect the game.
Welcome back to Moses Squared, the podcast. Super excited to have you back. Let's get right into this week's episode. Respect the game. We're going to recap the NBA. Obviously, we're in a championship mode right now. We're in the NBA Finals. Series is tied 1-1. What do you think about the series right now? Toronto, Golden State, all tied up.
I think this is a great series, one that everyone, has been talking about. First game, I think a lot of people were somewhat disappointed in the Warriors' performance, more so than excited about the Raptors' play. They had a few guys come up in big ways for them, but I think it was more so, what were the Warriors doing wrong?
Right.
Allowing wide open 3-pointers, at least in last night's game. And defensively, it's just like they're always a second late to start the game is what I have noticed in the past 2 games. What about you?
Yeah, I think a number of different things. Last game, Toronto was well ahead. They were slow to close out the second half, cut the game to 5. You leave Golden State into a game like that, it gets tricky because they can go on those 18-0 runs how they did when they started the second half, which is that's an extremely long run. It's hard to keep a lead in any situation when, a team comes out and goes 18-0, versus your side. Nonetheless, I heard a lot of talk of having it to do with the fan base. Right after halftime, fans not being back in the arena, not having a home court advantage. Nonetheless, that's no excuse to have an 18-0 run. But, boy, that changed the game last night. I think that Kawhi and the Raptors really had Golden State on the ropes. Nobody expected the Raptors really to be in this.
No one did, but I think they aren't surprised either. One player, Pascal Siakam, I think you pronounce his name, he's stepping up in some huge ways. Last night's game, he only had 12 points, but he played a lot more than we've seen him all season, which could be a key to this Toronto team. But going back to Golden State and playing is going to be really, really hard for them to do. And I think when you look at players like Andre Iguodala, first game didn't play very well at all. But it's like how often is he going to have games like that? So it's going to be hard, but I'm going to say if we're, keeping it real, I'm just going to say Golden State in 7. I would love for the Raptors to win it all. But because of the players and how well they play with each other on the Warriors team, yeah. What about you?
I think it's difficult. This is a difficult prediction for a number of reasons. Golden State has a lot of moving parts. They don't know exactly who's going to play. They don't know if Kevin Durant's going to be back. Boogie Cousins played well last night. This was his second game back after 45 games, so they have a nucleus that's constantly changing, which could affect their chemistry on the court or off the court. There's a lot of large personalities over there. Nonetheless, I think if KD remains out of this series, I think I don't think Golden State has enough firepower. I think Kawhi is one of the guys who fear Golden State the least. So for instance, when, he got hurt a year and a half ago when he, before he missed a year, game 1, Spurs versus Golden State, Kawhi had, I believe, 25, 26. They were up by 26 in the third quarter and lost that game and lost the rest of the series, obviously.
Yeah.
But that's just the effect that Kawhi has, I think, on those guys. I think they know how real Kawhi is, and as a competitor, it can have a little effect mentally.
I definitely think respect goes both ways for both of these teams. But I think what really separates the two teams is defense. And when you're talking about championships, and I know it may sound cliche, but to me, I do think defense is really what wins those championships. And when you look at Warriors defense and their on-ball defense more so than anything. Like, yeah, Kawhi's going to get his, but their on-ball defense, when they are locked in that fourth quarter, it's really hard to score. And you might get shots that you usually get, but they're not falling as much as they usually are throughout the season when you're going up against Draymond Green. I just don't see it for 7 games at least.
Yeah, I think it just goes to show the type of effect one player has on the game. And has on a team. Speaking of team and creating some teams, young athletes generally have a transitions from high school to college, and they're trying to figure out who they want to play with. Whether it's football, baseball, basketball, it's about creating a nucleus in college. So recruiting is hot. It's a hot topic. You've had a chance to go through, Division I basketball recruiting process. How difficult is it? What are some of the tips you have for young athletes? What are some of the things you want to say to them? Something to help you through the process?
I'd really just say to take your time. I think the recruiting process has changed a lot since, I was being recruited. But I just say take your time. I made sure that I went on all the visits I was supposed to for the schools that I was considering, and being aware of your surroundings. Watching the communication between teammates, players, watching communication between teammates and coaches. I think that tells a lot about the environment before you even get there. And so when you're able to point, things out about, communicating, I think that's just huge. So that's important, as well as getting other perspectives. I think my parents played a huge role in my recruiting process. Sure. Older, wiser, they can pick up on things that, kids can't always. So having someone, whether it is a parent or a coach, who can go on those visits with you, that can have one-on-one talks with the coaches about where they see your future and how they can see you play into what they want to do with their team.
Right.
But just being so aware, because, at the end of the day, it is a business. Recruiting this summertime, this is their business to go out there, find players who they think can help their program succeed. And that's literally what it is.
For sure.
Don't think too much about it. Don't think too little about it. And yeah, that would be my advice. But for you, football may be a little bit different. I know that for basketball, we have this summer where you have AAU, you go out, ball out with your friends all summer, and hopefully pick up a college scholarship. But what about recruiting for the football side?
Yeah, I got a chance actually to be recruited in basketball and in football, which was basketball started a little early because, like you said, those AAU seasons, those summers, coaches get a chance to come back repeatedly and see your growth. So they can kind of have a projection, and it kind of also there's tiers.
Okay.
So obviously you got your mid-majors and, different things with football and with basketball. And basketball, I think one of the keys are to improve every summer so that those coaches can see you on the circuit and see you perform at a different level and see how your work ethic has affected your game over a season. For football, I think it's evolving. For myself, I didn't go to very many camps.
Yeah.
I just talked to my buddy. His son just went to an elite camp. Adidas has these camps. Nike has these camps to where they want to draw athletes, have combines, kind of see these players from around the country compete on the same platform, the same field. It's interesting to me, and I'm still indifferent about it because I'm not sure if specialization is the right way to go.
Definitely.
Because now we're seeing these athletes like Kyler Murray. I just watched a program on Bo Jackson. I just watched another documentary on Frank Thomas, Auburn back in the day. And these guys were all special because they came to Auburn with the ability to play two sports,
Definitely.
At a very high level, and it works different muscles. It teaches your body different things. Even the things that Pat Mahomes are doing, they're second nature to him. His father was a baseball player, pro baseball player. So this kid's a quarterback now, and we're seeing him throw across his body. We're seeing him, throw against the grain. Where in football, that's a special play. In baseball, that's a common play, but if you can see the overlap and see how being an overall athlete can affect you in a positive way,
Definitely.
I think it's starting to show for those guys. Specialization is tricky because it locks you into one body function. Your body starts to do the same thing over and over, working the same muscles. But being a true all-around athlete is cool.
Yeah, and in the recruiting process, that's what coaches are looking for. They're looking for kids who can do different things. make things look different, make their defenders, a little shook at times. I think that, having one thing, being really good at one thing is great, but even in grad school, they tell us journalists all the time, being good at one thing, whether that's interviewing, whether that's video, whether that's editing, be great at that one thing, but be able and be open to learning and doing more. And so as an athlete, I think that that's extremely important because, take me, for example, a post player. I always made sure, my back to the basket moves were good, but because of my height, because of my size, I knew that facing up was something I had to learn, something that I had to get comfortable with doing, even though it wasn't so comfortable going up against girls who might have been quicker than me, things like that. But it's always just being willing and showing that you can do more.
Yeah, I think that's a great point you just made as far as really channeling that part of you that's special, that skill that you had, that gift, and making it great. And then taking those other weaknesses and bringing them up to par to where you're developing your entire game. And I think that's super important. That's one of the things I think I overlooked as a player. That was always the one knock on me was, oh, he's not fast enough. And in my head, I kept rationalizing, I'm not a speed. But I should have been, bringing up all of these different, any knock that I had, bring it up, make it a strength or make it stronger.
Yeah.
And then continue to grow.
And I think as well, like also in the AU process, when you're playing up against girls who, you've played with or against for so long, because that's what a lot of, my AU experience was, playing against these girls for so long. And, you know what they're good at. They know what you're good at. But what are you going to bring different to the table next time you go up against them? And I think that's what was always in my mind. Me and Daddy would be talking about players that I was going up against, and he would just be like, okay, well, she has that left hand. So what are you going to do about it? You're going to force her right. You're going to do this. You're going to do that. And I think going into games and, workouts and whatever it may be with that type of mindset, like, okay, well, you know what you're going to get and you know what you're going to give, but how can you give a little bit more?
For sure. And that's part of developing as a player.
Definitely.
And as a teammate, being able to communicate at a very high level, which is really important part of recruiting, because as much as these coaches are analyzing the type of player that each of these kids are, they're analyzing the type of person that they are even more, because we've seen multiple occasions where, athletes are special athletes, and they're just not the same type of person, so for a organization, they're not going to take a chance on a guy who has a huge upside, but shows those other things that are concerning, because these are major brands and we've seen them, disassociate themselves with different players quickly.
Oh, definitely.
To protect their image.
Definitely. And I mean, I feel like this is a great segue for Richie Incognito.
Richie Incognito.
Someone that you told me about, and I was able to do a little bit of research on. Offensive lineman, I believe,
yes,
who got picked up by the Raiders, got himself into a lot of trouble over, seems like the past 5 years. Could be longer, could be shorter, but would just go into, some of the details with him a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, it's so interesting. This guy, New Jersey native, went to Nebraska, was kicked off the team for a scuffle, went to Oregon, assaulted his classmate, threw this guy through the wall. He just signed a 1-year deal with the Raiders. So that's why we're kind of talking about this, because he's a guy who's had a checkered past, and obviously no one's perfect, but, he's headbutted guys on the field, thrown his helmet, been kicked out of games, threw a dumbbell at a guy, a gym goer in a normal gym who, then he started rambling about the government, and seems to be some sort of mental issue. Nonetheless, this guy is continue to show a pattern of trouble. His dad's funeral, punching caskets, threatening people with weapons that he actually had in a car.
Wow.
Racist comments towards opponents mid-game. There was an African player on the other side, and apparently there were some comments made. The young man tweeted it after the game saying that, you won't ever be able to put me or my people down, essentially. This was an Richie Incognito went on to apologize
Also, I saw some racial slurs towards
Yeah,
a Dolphins coach. I think it was like their strength and conditioning coach or something like that.
yeah, and a teammate. I mean, there was a guy, Jonathan Martin, who
Okay.
contemplated suicide after being bullied by this guy for some years, a rookie.
Yeah.
Dealt with homophobic slurs as well as, sexual gestures at his sister. I mean, it just goes on. The list goes on. I think the latest one you pointed out was him punching through a wall after an argument with his 90-year-old grandma.
Yeah.
This is my drawback from this, to make mistakes in this league and to get opportunities. And I'm passionate about this one because, there's a gentleman by the name of Colin Kaepernick who is a good player, should be a quarterback somewhere in this league. And he went ahead and made a decision to stand up for his people who didn't have the same platform peacefully. And he was essentially blackballed while this guy is continuing to get opportunities to, be able to support his family. There's no point for me to where the talent outweighs the person, and outweighs the character. Because during my time in the NFL, they made it clear that that's what they stood for. So now I'm in a pickle because I'm like,
Yeah.
you guys said you stood for this, and then you're signing this guy who stands for this. What do you think?
It makes me feel very uncomfortable yeah, there's obviously differences and the leash may be longer for others than versus,
Yeah.
people who may look like Colin Kaepernick or you and it just makes me uncomfortable because at the end of the day, like you said, this guy has some mental issues. And so now I'm thinking more so about health, mental health, which is extremely important and doesn't get talked about enough. And I feel who's asking that question? Who in this organization or past organizations are asking that question? Like, hey, man, this guy may actually need help. He may actually need to go speak to someone. A teammate who just might be concerned. Because these aren't just. He's a grown man at this point, and these aren't
Right.
tantrums, or they are tantrums, but for a grown man is just odd. And I feel like people need to. One, question the Oakland Raiders organization for bringing someone in like this because is he worth it? I see that
Right.
on the field, he seems to perform at a high rate, but is everything that comes with, off the field, is that really worth it to the organization and what they stand for? And then two, just getting that help that he needs because it's not safe for teammates. It's not safe for an organization. So I don't understand why putting him into a place that he could, clearly repeat the same actions, how that could be safe or healthy for anyone.
Yeah, I mean, accountability is what it comes down to. It's like, for Richie Incognito, for the NFL,
Yes.
and for the Raiders, who's going to take responsibility? This guy's out here literally terrorizing people, and he is a large man. I played against Richie Incognito. He's 6'5", 330, 340. He's a mean, nasty guy. I think that's been documented. So it's like when this type of person is moving within society and having tantrums when he feels, that's a dangerous situation to be in because we're in a not just a time in our country but in a world where everybody's awareness and intention is heightened. So it's like I'm not the only guy reading this. I'm not the only guy that's bumping into Richie Incognito.
Oh, definitely.
He's not the only person that that's a tough guy out here. So all the way around, I think we need to take a step back and really either A, try and help this guy, but B, also just take account, take a look at it and see how he's affecting other people
And
around
I feel
him.
like it's hard for myself at least, to look at the NFL and think that they could, voice any issue about this situation because when have they ever really taken accountability?
Right.
Especially for things that are, brought to their awareness as if they didn't peep it first, So I feel like something like this, it's part of the business, I feel like it's always things are just swept under the rug. And like you said, in this time, everyone's awareness is kicked up a notch. And so people are looking at it like, NFL, really? But how are they going to hurt? How are they going to, I don't know the word. What is the word I'm looking for? How are they going to reap any, backlash from this other than
Right.
maybe viewership? which wouldn't be enough to put a dent in their pocket. So I mean, I don't know. I just don't see where they're gonna do dish justice from this, which is why they're not gonna do anything about it.
I think one important thing to look back and really analyze is his friends throughout this process. I think that's one of the topics we definitely wanted to touch on today, and this is a perfect intro into it. This behavior's been going on since high school, it appears. So for me, it's like, where's this guy's friends at? Where's this guy's family? Where's people that care? Who can talk to this guy? Mm-hmm. And that's so important for not only high school, college, pro athletes, having that family, that team,
definitely.
that network, those good friends. High school, more importantly, those good friends, because you spend so much time with them making those decisions, being accountable, holding your friends accountable, because their actions could have an effect on you. How many times have we heard about athletes?
Oh, yeah.
Star athletes with their friends. Friends do something silly. Only person we hear about in the story, i.e. Allen Iverson, is the star athlete. And whether or not they were the most active or involved in that situation, they generally have the highest repercussion from it. So I think that's another key to this whole drill is watch who you keep around you. Be careful, be mindful of your friends, because they can have a positive or a negative effect on you. And that could be the difference between you going to really live out your dreams or you staying in Willingboro, New Jersey, or whatever neighborhood you're in, because it's that tricky. It can change in one instant. Like you said, these organizations, it's not much love. There's not much second chances for young, black kids or young kids who may not fit the scheme or the picture perfectly. So you really have to be on your toes, work harder, stay clean, and do your thing. But what do you have to say about friends and importance of it?
I think you said it all. I think that, like you said, the people who you have around you every day is going to mirror the person you are. There's no way that you can be with these people 10 hours out of the day and be one way, go home, act another. There's no way. So getting that, but I think it's important to have friends and to have people in your life who have the same beliefs, who are going after or not same goals, but going after goals in general, have passions, have role models, have mentors. Those are people who, can speak great things into your life. They can say one thing and it just might spark an interest or a passion of yours inside for you to do more. So I think having good people, and I think you have a sweatshirt on that says be a good person, and truly have good people around you who want great things for you as much as you want great things for them. And I think it's all about, mutual respect with your friends. And if you have that within them, then I think that's fine. But like you said, having people who, may envy you a little bit can be hard. And growing up in areas where they may not have same opportunities as you may also be hard, because you want your road dog around you. You don't want them to get caught up in things, but to an extent you have to think about, what this could be jeopardizing for yourself. And I think that's important. And just watching When They See Us on Netflix, which is amazing, and anybody who has heard about it definitely needs to go watch it. I don't know if you watched it yet, but a lot of people have been saying they don't want to watch it because it will make them mad.
Which show?
When They See Us. It's a series on Netflix. Ava DuVernay, I think her last name is pronounced, and she produced it. She directed it, and it's about the 5 kids who went down for raping and abusing a white lady back in 1989. Gotcha. And they went down for it. One of them was charged as an adult. And so the last episode kind of goes through that a little bit in depth. But it all goes to show, the people you hang around with, they didn't even know each other. But the people who you hang around with do tell a lot. And sometimes it doesn't even matter if you know these people. You look like them. You're in the same space as them. Oh, you must be friends. And so that's what the show kind of talks about and goes into depth about. And I don't want to say too much, but it's amazing. And it really goes to show you how cryptic our justice system is and can be to Black people. And that's what goes down and happens in a lot of these businesses that are not led by people that look like us. Yeah.
I mean, and to piggyback off of that, our choices are important, and our friends and who are around. And Daddy used to always say this to me was, you'll never get caught on 51st Street or you never get shot on 51st Street if you wasn't on 51st Street. So it's like you have to also be mindful of where you're at, what time it is.
Yep.
This environment, what you're signing up for, and have that awareness all the way around, because it is important.
Yep.
And I think you hit on a number of important things, and hopefully our listeners, really go back and study some of these things, because they are important. And I've been so close to either side. And a lot of young athletes deal with this, the peer pressure. The peer pressure is great, and it's becoming even greater for young kids these days. It's so easy to compare, to hop on Instagram and Facebook and look across and say, oh, this kid's killing out, I'm not doing enough.
Definitely.
And that's, again, where you have to lock it back in and compete, not compare. Take responsibility for your action, make your plan. And really, you got to start that by setting a goal and really wanting to achieve it. Because as things happen, you'll realize by setting a goal, you'll attract more of those things you want and less of those things that are not going to help you get to where you want to go. And that's what goals help you do, differentiate those things and grab onto the right stuff and push away the wrong stuff. I think that's the cool part about it. We appreciate you guys tuning in to Moses Squared Podcast. Stay updated on the podcast. Follow me at Twitter and Instagram at Dezman M, DezManM.
And you can follow me on both Instagram and Twitter. On Instagram, I can be found at Lauren.Brielle with 2 E's at the end. And on Twitter, Lauren_Brielle with 2 E's at the end. Also, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel titled Moses Squared Podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode. And if you have any recommendations or questions you may want answered, be sure to tweet both me and Dez on Twitter, finishing it off with #MosesSquared. God bless and see you next week.